Here we go. 1, 2. What is going on, all you awesome super aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast. I'm Nick with my co-hosts
Hamas, also known as James.
Got Eric here.
Immaculate.
Eric.
And the ever stylish
Woody Wood.
Ruby
And
Tuesday.
Mr. Invincible. Oh, incredible. Just kidding.
Mr. Invincible.
So first thing, you guys, for joining us today, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe. That's really going to help us out in the long run, and it's going to help with the YouTube algorithm. And make sure you guys are sharing with your friends and let them know what's going on. We also are going to be doing a raffle on Thursday, July 29th. That's going to be for a painting of the Batman Rogues Gallery at a poker game. So make sure you guys check that out, invite your friends, and we're going to be doing more raffles in the future. So make sure you guys follow us on Instagram at Heroes and Mutants Podcast. And let's jump into today's topic, today's episode. So first off, for news that has happened in this week and in development, Bassam Tariq is in early talks to direct the Blade film. He's a relatively, I won't say he's a new director, but he hasn't had a whole bunch of credits to his name and hasn't had a big blockbuster film. As far as credits, he's only got 2. He's directed These Birds Walk and Mogul Mowgli, which starred Raz Ahmed, and that was a good film. So he seems like a talented director, just needs that one big film to push him over. And Marvel has usually been very good with handling directors and finding directors to helm their films. And apparently it was his vision that won all parties over. So he seems like he's going to be a good fit for that. And moving on from that, we have Marvel Studios is creating an animation branch in Mini Studio to develop more animated projects for the MCU. I think that's a good thing because it'll allow them to focus on other storylines and other characters that might not be as popular and maybe have set continuations from their current universes. Like, it'd be cool if they had a live action show or movie, and then have like something animated from that. I think that'll be kind of like a cool thing. And you have that same actors reprising their roles. Like, that's something that'd be pretty cool. We haven't really seen yet. And I think that's something that could be pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because, DC has kind of owned that space, right?
Exactly.
Animated movies. They've just owned it. I think the only really good Marvel animated film we've got is Into the Spider-Verse. And that's even that's Sony, not really Marvel, but yeah, at the same time, I think this is gonna kind of give DC a run for their money. I think it's really cool. I think that definitely with What If series coming out, all that is animation. I think playing off the momentum of that, these Marvel animation studios are really gonna be able to do a lot and really dive deep into characters that we maybe haven't really seen in the bigger movies, smaller characters. On the floor type characters that are working in the cities, not at the global level. So I'm really excited about it. I thought it was a really cool announcement coming from Marvel.
I think it's a good idea for them. And one of the reasons, like you said, is DC has owned not just animated films, animation in general. If you talk about television series, back to Batman, the animated series, it's actually been decades of DC dominating the animated game. It's been a very long time. So Marvel has quite a way to catch up. But with all DC's decades worth of animation, you think that that probably inspires Marvel to try to reach to the same level. So we'll see what they pull out with this one. I wonder if it's going to be just movies like DC, or are they going to do the television series the way that DC does a lot of television and film animation.
It doesn't really say, it just says animated projects. So I think that's kind of all up in the air as far as movies and then shows. I think it's probably going to be all around the same thing. And it sounds like exciting stuff. What do you think, Ruby?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's it's going to be one of those things where it's just another way where Marvel could expand whatever they're doing, with the way they're trying to move forward. Like Jimmy said, DC has been in the animated, for so long, where they're on top of their game for that. I'll give DC that, when it comes to animated stuff, I do believe they're on top of their game for that. But when it comes to, live action, that's where Marvel's ahead. So Marvel does have a little catching up to do when it comes to the animated stuff, but they could do it. Because like I said, they're just going to expand on everything. They could bring characters they probably thought they would have never thought of using back in the days, just because now it could be animated instead of live action. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, they're doing this so they could touch on more characters that we want to see as fans, as comic book lovers, or just in general superheroes or villains,
Yep.
But I think it's a good idea. It's gonna work out. I think the way Marvel has been doing their things for live action, I don't see why they can't make it happen with that, animation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely exciting stuff. And then probably the biggest news that has happened recently is Leslie Grace has been cast as Barbara Gordon in the HBO Max film. And this caused people, we actually ran a poll on what people thought, and people were pretty polarized, where 50% said that they thought it was a good cast and 50% said that they thought it wasn't. So what do you guys think of her casting?
I'm a little bit up in the air on that one because she does not have an extensive screen history. I know she's in the Heights.
In the Heights. I think that was probably the role that won it over for her.
Which is kind of interesting because from what I understand, In the Heights actually bombed and didn't really perform well at the box office.
Yeah.
It did very poorly, and that's the only thing that she's known for. I don't know. I really actually don't know what to make of this one because I'm not familiar with her enough as an actress. Because even looking through her credits, it's not a very established filmography. So, I don't know. Did they have whole screen tests for this, or did they just pick her?
I think that screen test, they had a short list that they released, I want to say about a week, 5 days ago. And I know Zoe Deutch was on that short list, who just looking at her, she looks like a very comment accurate Barbara Gordon. And has had a long career, well, not a long career, but she's been around probably like 7-8 years. So as far as film and experience goes, like she was definitely on that top of that list and looked exactly like the character. I actually thought she was going to get the role, and this kind of came as a surprise to me. And
I'm guessing she probably must have given a really good screen test, because sometimes that's what happens. If they pick somebody new or less known or less established, they must have really kicked ass during the audition or something like that. So I got to give her the benefits doubt, see how it turns out.
Yeah, I actually voted that I think it's a good casting, and even though I don't know her that much, I think I trust the casting, right? I trust the directors, the production, and that they know what they're doing. They're picking the actor for it. And even if something like this bombs, in the end, they probably would have had worse actresses there. And what I'm saying there is, like, I don't think an actor needs to be well established.
That's true.
As long as the actor is portraying the character that the team wants to put together. Like, for example, I'm a huge fan of the Titans show, and my wife and I watch that show all the time. And those actors, none of them are really well established, but at the same time, I think they portray their characters really well, and I think they do an excellent job. And when I first heard the casting of like that Robin of Dick Grayson and who was going to be Raven, I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. Like, I was kind of worried because I'm a big Titans fan, but they did well. And in the end, like, I think you just kind of need to trust the process. That's why I'm always going to lean a little towards giving them the benefit of the doubt, no matter what. Because you can also have the opposite, right? You can have a really well-established actor do a really bad take on a hero. Like,
that's happened before.
What comes to mind is George Clooney as Batman, right?
Or like, Ben Affleck as Daredevil.
You got good actors, but it just the vision was wrong. So that's why I'm always going to lean towards giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I also think sometimes they do this so they could so with these heroes, with a lot of these heroes, they try to get newer actors. That way the audience doesn't really have any preconceived notions of who the actor is, and they don't try to like slot. You could see them as that character fresh because you don't have too many screen associations with them before that.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. And she's actually, like, I actually just found this out because her stage name, which she goes by, is Leslie Grace, but her name is actually Leslie Grace Martinez, and she's Dominican, so she's going to be one of the first superhero, or as far as right now, especially in DC, to be portrayed by a Latina. So I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, we actually don't see too much of that now that I'm thinking about it. So
I guess that's just another topic I wanted to bring up, because I think that was what people had a problem with, and something when I was going through on the different Instagram posts and just seeing what people, their reactions and what they were saying, one of the main reasons was that she's not white and she doesn't look like a comic accurate Barbara Gordon. So I guess the question I want to ask you guys is, when is it okay to change a character's ethnicity or race, and when is it not okay to do so, in your guys' opinion?
Okay, I have this opinion of why I think people harp on it too much, and I'm going to give you an example. A lot of people don't like this new trend where you see more people of color or even more diversity of any kind with actors. But let's rewind back to 1960s Adam West Batman.
Oh, I know where you're gonna go.
Catwoman was portrayed by a black actress, and the Joker was portrayed by a gay Mexican. Nobody complained at the time.
Cuban.
Yeah. Nobody complained at the time. Nobody had anything to say. However, if you were to do that now, there would be an outcry that this is just social justice or warrior nonsense or something like that. But I'm just saying it's existed in the past and nobody had a problem with it. So that's all I got to say about that one.
Yeah. I think it really depends on the character.
Yeah.
Like for example, Luke Cage has to be black.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Or like even Shang-Chi, right? Shang-Chi, it has to be Asian because of how important that is for the culture and how important that character, like their life story is, right? I think when it comes to like American superheroes, I don't care what race they are, because Americans, like, there's different races, and even like when you're talking about Superman, right? Like you can see different universes in the comic books where he's not just white. I mean, hell, he's not even really a race; he's an alien. So yeah, so at the same time, it's like people harp on it a lot, but it shouldn't really matter for specific characters. I think there's only a handful of characters that it's really gonna matter who's playing that character.
Okay, so here's another question, and this is just my theory. Am I the only? I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks this. You've seen Lex Luthor and Harvey Dent in Batman the Animated Series and Superman.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they're meant to be black in those series. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like they're drawn. And I mean, I know that Clancy Brown, who voices Lex Luthor, is not black, but it just seems like they kind of went for that vibe off of it.
Definitely.
I kind of feel like we've already seen it before. And unless it's Black Panther, obviously Black Panther, the race is so crucial to that character, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part, American superheroes, the race is not a very important aspect of their story.
It shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't matter.
And that's where I agree with you guys. Like a lot of what you guys are saying, I don't have one disagreement. My aspect about it is just like a lot of people in the day, like you said, all these early comics, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, it was a lot of racist, you know what I'm saying? A lot of racial hate. So I feel like people were just so at that time, the creators who were creating that were getting published, obviously, their main characters were going to be white, because at the time, that's what everyone was accepting. That's what it was. And yeah, there was these artists, I give them props for, that, they went with them, Asian or black, things like that. And that's much probably because they were breaking barriers for that. But that's why I don't understand. See, people were just used to reading the comics because of the white people that they see in the book that they're reading. But in reality, say times weren't like that back then. We would have been seeing a bunch of different colored characters, you know what I'm saying, or different ethnicities in these books for sure. But like I said, I think just a big factor is nowadays, like you said, James, people are like, oh, well, you know what? You're trying to be forget the word you used earlier.
Social justice warrior.
Yeah, social justice thing and all that. But it's like, nah, like, bro, like, in reality, I just feel like, say times were they were back then right now, which in a way they are. That's why they're trying to say, pro social justice, like, dog, you wouldn't be saying that back in the days. You would be like, no, just don't use them. So now they just find an excuse to find a different way not to use a different ethnicity.
Yeah.
I think a good example of a superhero character that the ethnicity was changed and was a positive result was Aquaman. Right? Like, Aquaman has always been white, blonde hair, and then we get the DCEU version of Aquaman, and there's a Samoan heritage. That just makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
For the connection with the water and all that.
Yeah, and because of the Polynesian gods and all of that.
Yeah.
But I also think part of it was
cool.
because of Jason Momoa. Like, you see this 6'4" badass dude, and he was Khal Drogo. I think just the audience was quick to rally behind him because of the fact that he was just this badass dude. No one really questioned it, and obviously because of the take they were going for, they wanted this character to be taken more seriously and not be the butt of the joke. So they had to get a very muscular and physically imposing dude who could bring out that persona.
Yeah.
You know what also benefited Aquaman is that Aquaman's reputation was of not being cool in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So to find somebody that everybody agreed was cool and badass, I think that was one of the cases where people are like, shut up, we need a cool Aquaman.
Because I still feel to this day, like a lot of people don't like Aquaman. Like, what is he? He just talks to fish, and it's like, nah, like you need to give him more respect than that, you know? Like,
I think Jason Momoa has reformed the image of Aquaman in the public. Yeah. I feel like most of like 100%. The jokes about Aquaman being like a second-tier superhero have almost faded from pop culture, and now he's a badass.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it made $1 billion. Think about it. Nobody ever thought an Aquaman movie would make $1 billion.
Exactly. So, and then circling back to this casting, right? We're talking about Batwoman or Batgirl.
Yeah.
Batgirl. I think the directors might know what they're doing here, what they're doing with hiring a Hispanic person, and in that, like, they can even draw on that in their stories, right? Like we all know, like, Hispanics are minorities in certain areas, and for that they might have wanted someone with a minority background to be that character. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think for me, because I'm obviously somebody, I love comic books and I love comic accurate portrayals, but at the same time, I'm somebody who's pretty open and saying, oh, okay, that person got cast. Okay, I can see that working. I can see what they're going for. I can see that direction they're trying to take with that character. Like because Jason Momoa had been attached to this role, I want to say even back to like when he first announced, he had known for it. I think by the time they revealed it was like 2 years or a year after he had already gotten fully cast. And it was just, that's speculation, that's rumors, because my friend, ever since like 2012 was like, no, dude, Jason Momoa is going to be Aquaman. And I looked and I seen it and I'm like, oh, you're talking about Conan? Because I didn't know him from Game of Thrones. I didn't watch it at that time. And I'm like, oh, you're talking about the reboot of Conan, right? And I'm like, looking at him and I'm just like imagining him with the trident and like, okay, I can see that's a badass dude. And I just started reading Jeff Johns' run on the character from the New 52, where his personality is more stern and he's more brooding. I'm like, okay, that definitely fits what they're going for Jason Momoa, and they're going to try to make him more badass and physically imposing. Okay, I'm all for it. So even though I was somebody, I wanted to see the white boy with the blonde hair and the orange and green outfit, in which I didn't expect them to do that for the film. That was cool. They actually had that. But at the same time, I said to myself, you know what? This, as long as it fits the story, what they're going for, and it fits what they're doing, and it isn't coming from a perspective of trying to be woke for the sake of being woke or trying to be diverse for the sake of being diverse, as long as they're trying to tell a good story with this character and this actor in mind, that's just all, and it fits true to that character's personality and their persona from the comics, then who am I to say, oh, I'm not going to give this a chance just because they don't look like a comic accurate portrayal or they don't look how this character does in the comics.
I'm going to give one more example before we move on. And it's from a bad movie. I don't like the Daredevil movie. I don't like it, but
I was going to say that too.
I think Michael Clark Duncan was a good choice for Kingpin. He totally pulled that one, was totally perfect for it.
Exactly.
That one out.
Well, you're 100% right. But Leslie Grace looks like a talented actress, and I'm sure her, especially because her being In the Heights, that was released on HBO Max, she already had a partnership, or she already like the company already had known her and known about her. So I also think it was easier to pull from the other actresses, or because they already had that existing relationship. But I think she's a good fit. Barbara Gordon is an awesome character, Batgirl. So as long as they do it justice, that's all I care about. And let's hope for the best.
Yep.
And moving on from that, we had our first look at the Injustice animated film with the full voice cast released. And we only really got a picture, so it's not really much to go off of. But the whole film cast was released. We have Justin Hartley as Superman. Kind of interesting because he actually played Green Arrow back in the days. I don't know if you guys remember on Smallville. He was actually Green Arrow. So I think that's a cool little nod.
Man, that brought me back to like, whoo, old days.
Yeah, and then we have Anson Mount as Batman, Gillian Jacobs as Harley Quinn, Laura Bailey as Lois Lane. That's I haven't seen her in any of these. She's mainly just done anime stuff, right? Laura Bailey. Like she did Kid Trunks. She did Kid Trunks, and she's done a lot of anime stuff. So that's pretty cool. Kevin Pollak as Joker, Anika Nani Rose as Catwoman, Reed Scott as Green Arrow, Janet Varney as Wonder Woman. She does Korra, Janet Varney. Derek Phillips is Nightwing, Aquaman, Yori Lowenthal as Flash and Shazam, and Brandon Michael Hall as Cyborg. So this looks pretty cool. I'm wondering if it's going to be anything different, if they're going to go a new route than they did with the video games, or if it's going to be based off of that. But that looks pretty cool, so I can't wait for that. And talented voice cast. And last but not least, this was actually something we had just heard about, I think, like a day or two ago. But Michael B. Jordan is developing his own Superman Limited series for HBO Max that will focus on Val Zod, with talks of him possibly starring as the character. So what do you guys think of that?
I think it's cool. I think it'll be interesting to see the character of Val Zod tackled. I know a lot of people are worried because there's I feel like there's different factions within the Superman camp of what they want to see. A lot of people want to see Henry Cavill return, which I conclude myself amongst those people. I want to see Henry Cavill given another chance. But I also like the idea of Michael B. Jordan as Superman, and I think that we finally reached, comic book films have come in different stages to finally catch up with how the comic books were. If you think about Superman and Batman in the 80s and 90s, those were movies that were individualized. They didn't necessarily take place in the DC universe. They took place in a universe where just that character existed. Then we see expanding a little bit more, nodding to different things. Then we see the MCU come out where we acknowledge they're all in the same place. And now I think we're finally getting to the next phase of comics where we acknowledge that there is a wide multiverse, and both DC and Marvel have been doing this for a long time. So I think we finally have reached the point in comic book films where it's going to be like the comic books themselves, where there are multiple versions of different characters. So I don't think it matters as much. I think there's going to be a different Superman. If you don't like Henry Cavill, you can always check out the Michael B. Jordan one. If that doesn't work, you can check out the Henry Cavill. And I just think this new multiverse way of telling stories is going to make it a little closer to the comics, and it's going to probably satisfy more people at once with a different variety of these characters.
Very. It is kind of ironic that this is happening too, and that he's producing this and masterminding it, because there was a fan petition. I don't know if everybody remember this, but there was a fan petition a while back on having Michael B. Jordan play Superman. And it'd be kind of funny if he ends up playing Val Zod, because it's damn, this whole thing started as something that you didn't ever think that was ever going to happen. Or it was just one of those things that it would have been. I don't even think people were aware that there was a Val Zod or that there was a black Superman. Actually, from the comics, people just thought, oh yeah, we want to have, they're talking about having Idris Elba as Black James Bond. Now we're gonna have a Black Superman. It's kind of ironic in that sense, but it's. I'm excited to see what they do with it, and like you said too, it's going to be closer to the comics in that vein of having different characters portray the same character, or is especially now we're going to have so many different versions of Batman. I think we have 4 or 5 live action actors playing different versions of Bruce Wayne Batman. So I think I'm all for it, and it makes it, as a comic book fan, it's pretty cool because it allows it to have different storylines and have different versions of the character, and not have to worry about, oh, well, this isn't the same as that one, or this isn't, it's all going to be connected in that way.
I think we are officially in the multiverse phase of superhero filmmaking. That's the future of it. We've already done the shared universe. Now it's time to start expanding and doing the multiverse.
They have to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope they keep it clean, though, because, I mean, in the comic books, they've had to do a bunch of, the Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that, just to kind of clear everything out and all right, we're going to start over. And I mean, we might see something like that happen in the near future. I think more so on the DC side than maybe on the Marvel side. Yeah. Marvel's very particular of what they're introducing and when.
Yeah. But DC's answer just seems to reboot it every 5 years, because in the past 10 years alone, we've had Flashpoint, we've had Convergence, we've had Rebirth, Future State. That's already how many different freaking timelines or different reboots or trying to course correct.
So it's
Well,
interesting, but we'll see.
Flashpoint.
Flashpoint. Yeah.
So we'll see. Sounds we'll definitely let you guys know as more things are in development with that, and if Michael B. Jordan is going to be cast or is going to be playing Val-Zod, I think that's a strong chance for that. So make sure you guys stay tuned. And now we're gonna get started on the main topic for today. And there was an MCU movie that came out recently. I don't know if you guys were aware and seen the mass marketing and seeing that they finally had their own solo film for a girl character, and that is Black Widow.
We had Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. I'm an idiot. What am I saying?
Okay, all right. Let's correct this. This is the one that more people were asking for.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's the one that people actually wanted.
I don't think it's fair that Captain Marvel got the movie first, given that Black Widow had a longer history and more support from these movies. So I do find that kind of strange that this should have came before Captain Marvel. But here we are.
Exactly. Yeah. So, just first impressions. What did you guys think of the movie?
It was good. I enjoyed the casting. I enjoyed Florence Pugh. I enjoyed David Harbour. I enjoyed all four of them as a family. I thought they had a lot of good chemistry. I thought Florence Pugh was funny. I liked how she would mock Black Widow's the way she comes down, or how she's always
posing. The posing.
Yeah, the superhero pose, and you always flip your hair up like that, and then she ends up doing it by the end too. It's like, damn,
by accident.
Yeah,
just like more.
Like, I feel disgusting or something like that.
Yeah. It's functional. It's functional.
Oh yeah, and she's an amazing actress, so I knew she was gonna kill the role. So I loved her in it. As much as I enjoyed it, it was a good movie. It just feels like it came 5 or 6 years too late. And it feels sometimes like we're watching a movie missing from a timeline that we should have gotten a while ago. And I think it's unfortunate that it almost seems like an afterthought, because it doesn't, other than the end credit scene, it's not going to have much effect on the future of the MCU. I mean, even if you want to look at it as its own movie, it's really good, but I don't know. It feels just like a little too late. It feels like an apology film. Like, okay, here's your Black Widow movie. Be happy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's more of an apology film. I do feel it's late. I agree with you on that. It's like it should have been like another Captain America, like the first Avenger kind of thing, where obviously Iron Man is the one forming the Avengers, but in reality, it should have been like some Captain America is, But other than that, like I did like it. I agree with you, Jimmy, where it should have been a lot sooner. But I don't know if it was contract-wise, with Johanna. So I don't know if that had to factor into it. But not only that, since they were already not canceling, I hate that word nowadays, canceling. Now that they freaking X'd her out, like they killed her off, I feel like it was just a new way to introduce the way Marvel is moving into phase. What are we going into? Phase 4? Into phase 4 to introduce the new characters, the younger characters. And I won't get too far ahead of myself, but there's Young Avengers, the Champions, and things like that.
You're right.
So I feel like that's just a new way to introduce a new version of the Black Widow.
No, you're actually. I take that back. I didn't consider that, but you're 100% right, because I actually think Florence Pugh is going to be kind of replacing Scarlett Johansson. So you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
What did you think, Eric?
But okay. I'll get to that in a sec. Black Widow overall, I thought it was a good movie. It works as an action movie. I think it works more as an action movie with a sprinkle of Marvel in there. I completely agree with Jimmy that it's just kind of its own film, doesn't really add anything to the universe, to the MCU as a whole. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, didn't really add anything to the universe as a whole, other than the end credit scene and kind of interacting with Falcon at one point.
Yeah, that's true.
And so other than that, I think it should have been the first female movie that we saw from MCU. It should have come right after Captain America: Civil War, because it very clearly leads into it, right? Mm-hmm. You have her like running away.
Hates on Captain America so much.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that watched it and they were confused for a brief while, like, why is she running away? Like, what's she doing? You're like, oh yeah, she attacked Black Panther during Civil War. And now she's on the run. She helped Steve Rogers and all that. So it was kind of just like dropped in the middle. It's almost like a one shot, right? Like you have the one shot Marvel comic books, where it's just like the one story that happened on the sideline before they come into the bigger story.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, and I like it. I like it in that sense. I think it's really cool. On the subject of Black Widow dying, and I know at the end they show her tombstone. There are actually, I don't know if you guys know, there are actually 2 different endings that were filmed for this movie. So you know how there's the whistle that the sister does, and then Black Widow whistles back at the very end. She does the whistle and there's no response. There's actually a second ending that was created where you hear the whistle back before it cuts out.
I ain't gonna lie, when I seen that ending, I was like,
is she gonna whistle back?
I was kind of expecting a whistle or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So I don't know about that. There's people that are saying that Captain Rogers I say Captain Rogers just because there's 2 Captain Americas now. Captain Rogers, when he goes back at the end of Endgame to return the Soul Stone, he could return the Soul Stone and get a soul back for it. So there's that option as well. And I think very clearly Black Widow is setting up the sister to be the next Black Widow.
Yeah.
But I think it might be just wishful thinking, but it still leaves the door open for Scarlett Johansson to come back.
Yes.
I think it's still an option.
I think it does, but I think they're going to want to stick to Florence Pugh at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, she's a great actress. Like, nothing against her. Like, I think you mentioned earlier, like, her part in Midsommar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's a great actress. She does great in that role, and she's going to do really good. And I think...
I agree with you, Eric, too, because, just like in the comments, when they trade a soul for the Soul Stone, they're not completely gone. They're just trapped inside the Soul Stone. Oh, spoiler alert! I don't know if you don't know one. If you don't know, now you know. Freaking when you do a soul for a soul, your Soul Stone gets trapped inside the stone. So in reality, they're still alive. They're just living a whole different version. Like they're still living on, but in the Soul Stone. So it's pretty weird. So I could see what you're I could see where you're going with that. Where they could reintroduce her down the line. It might not be the same actress, but they could always bring back Natasha.
Yep. I think the movie just worked really well for like fans that really pay attention to details as well.
Very.
Like if you look at the vest that she's wearing that the sister has with all the pockets, you see that come out in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Also, you finally figure out what happened in Budapest.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
She had told Loki about that, or talked about an event about Budapest. There was a lot of red in Budapest.
Yeah, and I mean, Loki even mentioned in the original Avengers, he mentions the villain by name and his daughter. And yeah, so I think it was kind of a lot of like full circle type of stuff that was happening in that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it was a good movie. It's definitely not the best Marvel movie that we've had recently, but it's not the worst, right?
Yeah.
I also think it was kind of a necessary movie because I think Black Widow's origin and her backstory at this point in the franchise is a little bit overdue in terms of all the other characters. Specifically, the male characters all have such well-developed backstories that we care about, and we go into their past, and we know all about Steve Rogers. Like, I think it was about time that they finally gave her the same kind of treatment. It's just too bad it came so late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this one actually worked for me. I've seen it twice, and the first time I ran through it, I had said, yeah, I liked it, but I felt it was for the subject matter and what the plot was about and the whole mind control aspect. And I thought it went into dark territory at times, but then they sprinkled in that traditional MCU comedic timing and formula, because then with the jokes and all that, just because, okay, we gotta make it funny, we gotta lighten it up, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. But the second time round, I actually rated it higher because I think those things, I think they worked better just because of where they're, now that I knew the plot and I didn't have to worry about what was gonna happen next or focus on what was happening next. I can focus on what was happening in the moment, what the characters were doing, why they were doing what they were doing, why they were saying what they were saying. And I think the thing, like, for me, one of those biggest instances was that when the Red Guardian, when they crash land and they're walking to Melina's complex, and Red Guardian is just, well, what's up with all this hostility? We completed our mission. We did what we were supposed to do. And he like grabs both their hands, like, your legends must be gushing red. I am so proud of you guys. And I thought for me the first time around, I'm like, why are they making light of this? But then the second time around, I'm like, wait a minute, it actually works, because obviously, Lexi is a very complex character, very flawed character. So that would be something that he would say out loud. It wasn't like they were doing it because they were trying to make funny or they were trying to make light of a dark situation. It was because that was just how the character is. That's just true to who he is. So I think I was able to watch it more from that context and from that lens. And it just worked for me more because I understood that this is just who this character is. And they're not just doing this to try to make a joke or trying to make a quick quip or something like that.
Yeah. I still thought it was pretty funny though when someone called them out where they were like, "Wait, didn't you say you fought him in this year?
Are you calling me a liar?"
Wasn't he already trapped in the ice? You know?
Yeah. Calling him out.
Oh man, that's
funny. Small little detail that a lot of people didn't notice, but in that scene, he actually had Natasha and Yelena's names tattooed on him in Russian.
Oh, cool.
That's a pretty cool little detail that showed. Obviously, there was that whole instance on if he truly cared, and that is one of those things you see right at the back that showed that he did care. He also had Karl Marx tattooed on his knuckles. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I saw that too. That's crazy.
The whole communist connection and the whole thing was. So I thought those were cool little details. A lot of people didn't realize.
Yeah,
there's a lot of little hints in that movie about what's going on moving forward.
And I think for me, where it was strongest at was that whole dysfunctional family unit. Like when they were all four together, that was really where the film was at its strongest and at its peak, and it just worked so well for me. But what did you guys think about that?
I think that the casting is probably what made this movie, and I think the middle section of the movie, when it's all united together, is probably the best part of the movie. I mean, the intro, the beginning is fine. The action at the end is cool, but I think what really makes the heart of the movie is those four actors: is Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Scarlett Johansson make a very believable family unit. Very unconventional family unit.
Very dysfunctional, conventional.
Maybe it's a little bit strained. Maybe there's a lot of tension, and maybe it's not as honest or how we think of in terms of family. But it's very clear that there is some kind of emotional bond between them. And I like one of the things that I do like about the middle section is that it keeps shifting your perception on who's the good person, who's bad. You think maybe, like, you know how they keep switching parts. First you think the mom is bad, and then you think it keeps switching until you realize that they're all working together. For a while I thought it was fractured and there was like double crossing going on, but it was nice to see that they were all working as a unit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they're all spies essentially, so you never know who to trust at any given point.
So I thought that the casting was really the highlight of the movie, and I think without such good actors like this, it would be harder to sell it. You need the type of cast that you had here to do this.
Yeah, I agree with Jimmy. I think the cast is the best part. And when you get those four actors, those four characters together, from that point on, the movie just took off. And it was like, definitely. All right, this is going by. Like, I was having fun watching the movie at that point. It was really cool. What I will say, though, I think I'll tell you my least favorite part about the movie. The worst part about this movie. Oh, we'll get there?
Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to have one big discussion on that. So we'll talk about that.
All right.
What about you, Ruby? What was the family dynamic the strongest for you? The casting family dynamic.
For sure. Yeah, no. Like you guys are all saying, I agree with you. Like the casting alone was, like Jimmy saying, is what made it work. It was a hella dysfunctional family for sure. I do believe the mom was the bad one because of all the information we found out about her and what she was doing in order for that to happen. About the freaking mind control basically, and it wasn't until I think that family dinner where she changed her mind about being the good person, because in reality, say they never would have been to her compound, I don't think she would have changed her mind. She would have kept doing the same old thing,
Probably.
And then like her youngest daughter, she was like, who do you think they were testing that on? And I was like, dang, that's deep. And, so I feel like those little factors played into it, where they were like, well, I considered it real. And like, just like when the Red Guardian was talking about, they sent us on a mission, 3 years, the most boring of my life. And then she looked back at him like, come on, like that's messed up and shit, like, in the end, yeah, I just it's dysfunctional family, but they all made it work, and I really like the way it all came to play.
So you think that she needed to see her family again? Melina, she needed to see her family again to be reminded why she should be a good person.
A good person, yeah.
Okay, I could.
Are allowed to look at a deeper lens on, is what I'm doing really ethical? Are we really doing the right thing? Or is this really being done, like, especially with anything towards mind control? Can it really be done in an ethical, moral way? And I think that allowed her to kind of tackle that head on, because, and I think that was the thing too, where, well, the first time through, I was like, why did she, like, she's pretty stupid if she just thought that they weren't going to be testing it, or like what purpose was it going to be used for? And that she was all like, oh, well, it's not my question. But of course, then she said something that I thought about later when the second time, which is, well, and Natasha asked her, like, why did you stay? Why did you continue to work for Dreykov this whole time? And she just says, like, did you know that I was cycled through the Red Room 4 times before you were born? It was all I knew. I didn't think I had a choice. So I think also knowing that at that time with that context and in that lens, it allowed me to understand her character and why she stayed and why she was able to switch sides, because she was confronted with this was used to hurt and control somebody that she loved and somebody that she raised as daughter. So that allowed her to be like, okay, this is not being done in that way that I thought. Or we're not just doing it to control pigs or control animals. They're using it to control people and take away their free will. So that worked. That's like one of those things that worked for me better. And also too, I actually really like the action. It didn't seem like it was from a regular MCU film. It actually felt like it was pretty good, and that there was a lot of thought and a lot of care and caution that went into creating these action sequences. They were all pretty good as far as once the fights picked up.
How did you feel about the staging of the action sequences, Nick? Because I know that you're very particular about the way that action is staged and edited, and in terms of what you could see.
It felt pretty good. I won't say it was anything that it was groundbreaking or they were trying something new, but it just felt like it felt pretty decent. Like, it felt like if I had to rate the action sequences, it was probably like a 6 or a 7, but not so much there was like overcutting and over editing. It seemed like they were allowed to, the camera was just there to pick up on the characters' movements and allowed us to soak in and see what was going on. The only thing I will say is we didn't really get to see the Red Guardian fight too much. They had that real sequence where he was fighting Taskmaster, and I felt like they cut that and trimmed that pretty down. I would have liked to have seen more of what he can do.
I mean, because during a lot of the action sequences, I paid attention because I was thinking about you. It seemed for the most part like it was cohesive, and like I was looking, I was like, okay, I could connect this move and this camera angle switches that, this would be the next logical thing. Where sometimes in some MCU movies where I look at the actors like, wait, what? The editing doesn't even make sense. It just chaos. But like
it didn't feel too jarring or too disconnect. It just felt like they were trying to just let the audience see the movement, especially when you have characters like Yelena and Natasha, who have very acrobatic, flexible, ballet kind of fighting styles. You want to see them, do their scissors takedowns and do their crazy movements, and they're more flexible and dynamic movements. So I actually felt like they just filmed it in a very basic way and just said, hey, we're going to pull back and let the audience see the movements and what's going on and allow them to connect the movements together.
Okay, cool.
So now moving on to, I wanted to talk about what Eric almost brought up. This is probably the biggest part that didn't work for me too, and was, I think, one of the weaker areas of the film. What did you guys think of the villain Taskmaster and the reveal of who Taskmaster is?
She had no point being in the movie.
Dude, okay, so the character, so not Taskmaster, the daughter, I think having the daughter be in the movie made sense, right? It was kind of Black Widow's story, the guilt that she was feeling, all that. Having her be Taskmaster was so weird to me, and they did Taskmaster so wrong. Because in the comic books, not just in the comic books, like in the video games, and you see him in some of the shows, he's like a very imposing character. It's always like, how the heck am I gonna beat him? And because he can memorize all the moves that I do. So with that, I think in the movie, when they started showing that it was like a computer in the helmet, I was like, okay, they're just trying to explain how he's able to do the things he does. I'm okay with that, right? But then when there's like, oh, surprise, it was actually the daughter the whole time, I was like, oh, man, that's just weird. And and they kind of and they just by the end of the movie they flip Taskmaster to kind of be like a good person, right? Because he goes off with the other Black Widows, and I was just like, man, they did. He could have been such an imposing character, not just for this movie, but for other movies moving forward. Like you'll just always know Taskmaster is somewhere in the universe, but now like Taskmaster is like, it's just kind of up in the air. It's like what's going on.
I think it kind of shows what it says a lot about Disney's and Marvel's plans for a lot of like the Black Widow mythology and everything. It seems like that's the type of decision that you make when you're trying to compress things into one movie and you don't plan on ever revisiting it again in the future. Like it just had to be shoehorned in such a way. Yeah. That's the impression I get off of it. It's there because it has to be, just because we're not really going to be tackling this aspect of the universe anymore.
I don't think we're not going to see Taskmaster anymore. And if
that's the case, then it's going to make it more pointless then.
Yeah, right. Well, so and this is kind of my thought, and I get, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in this movie we see Thunderbolt Ross, and he looks really sick, right? And in that, I think they're kind of introducing Red Hulk, right? His version of the Hulk. And I think they're going towards the Thunderbolts, right? We already have U.S. Agent from the Captain, who was Captain America, so from Falcon Winter Soldier. We already have him. We have Black Widow. We would have Red Hulk, and then I think we're gonna introduce Taskmaster into the Thunderbolts. And I think we're gonna have our own version of like the Suicide Squad, right? But for Marvel. And I think that's kind of where they're gonna go with Taskmaster. So it's not really good or bad. They're like bad characters, but they're gonna be doing like underground stuff and doing all these, or even like Dark Avengers
off the
type
book
stuff.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's what I think. That's where I think they're going with Taskmaster. I think they're gonna keep her around, and I really think they're gonna use her in that way. It just is not the way I would have used Taskmaster.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll see.
What do you think, Ruby?
I just felt like they did a whole 360 with Taskmaster right on one. You know, I agree with Eric where I don't think it's gonna be the last time, not the last of the Taskmaster. You know, but I do trip out on how like. So see, I'm not going to against. I see this word, that whole what's that word again you were saying about the whole justice thing, freaking Jimmy?
Social justice warrior.
Social justice, yeah. So see, I feel like I don't think
making
that
it a girl.
Hard to do with it, but I was like, damn. So you're bringing the first lady Taskmaster right off the bat, you know? Like, man, that's crazy. Like, I'm with it, but it's like, damn, you guys are really just trying something off the bat, you know? So it's cool. I like it because I'm pro, you know? I'm pro female. Like, that's what's up.
Yeah.
But I just felt like you said, like when I say it's like a whole 180 or 360, you know, full circle. I was like, dang, dog, like they really just gonna introduce her and kill her off on the same time. Like, damn, that's like you said, Eric, she's not dead. She's not gonna be not reintroduced again. Like for sure, like you said, with the whole Thunderbolt role, that's not the first time we've seen him around, you know. But I feel like they're giving him a little bit more. Not a lot of camera time, but they're giving him glimpses of camera time where, like, all right, he there's something gonna go on with the Thunderbolt shit for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Watch my language. But for sure something's gonna go on.
Okay. What about you?
I feel the same way. Taskmaster is definitely one of the more interesting Marvel people for me, especially because of his allegiance where he was a villain at first, then he became a trainer and he worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. And there was just a lot in this whole photocopy abilities, and it was enhanced by an offshoot of the super soldier serum, and a lot of those ideas and a lot of those things about him made him very interesting to me, especially because I'm somebody who loves action, loves anything with martial arts sequences. I knew with this character we were going to be getting that, but with the whole reveal and everything, I just felt like, more so with what Eric had said, they had just used this villain to use it to tie into Natasha's past and have like a full personification of her guilt. And it was just like, that's just how I felt. Like I was just like, I thought they could have been stronger. It would have been cool to see Tony Masters as this character. it just was one of those things. Like, it just was like they did a complete 360, and you kind of seen there was like rumors that this was going on, like there was going to be a woman, and who is it going to be? And there was talks that I think the guy that played Mason, he was going to be. There was talks of like him because we didn't know too much about his character, so like a lot of people were speculating he was actually going to end up being Taskmaster, because Mason Masters Taskmaster is pretty similar to that, so people thought he was going to be Taskmaster. But I just felt like that could have been stronger, and that just it was just one of those things that was very cliched. Just have a reveal of somebody who was just tied to her past, who she thought was dead but wasn't really dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is if Eric, if you're correct and they end up bringing Taskmaster back at some point in the future, I guess the good thing about an expansive universe is that they can always improve upon the character in the future.
That's true. That's true.
Definitely. So what do you guys rate Black Widow out of 10?
Damn.
I give it a 7.5.
Crazy. I was gonna say the same thing too. 10.58 maybe.
A solid C.
Maybe.
It's a good movie. I don't think it's not one of those movies I'm gonna go back and watch again. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I only watched it once and I was cool with it.
Yeah. Like maybe I'll watch it again just for fun, or as part of like if I do like a marathon leading into a new movie or something, I'll probably throw it on.
Watch
yeah.
it on in a row.
Exactly. It'll be one of the ones I throw in there, like almost like Iron Man 2, or yeah.
I know. I feel you on that. Disney Plus comes clutch though.
What do you think, Jimmy? What do you rate it?
6.5.
6.5.
Oh dang.
That still leans more towards positive and negative. Just
it is.
Yeah. A little.
But yeah.
I'll give it
the same thing. It's not something I would rewatch, but I enjoyed it while I was watching it, and
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'll give it a 7. Like I said, I probably would have rated it like a 6 the first time around, but things worked out a little bit better once it really got in that family dynamic, and once the cast was allowed to shine. That's really what did it for me. So give it a 7. Make sure you guys check it out. You can check it out in theaters or check it out on Disney Plus. You might as well just go in the theaters because it's going to be like $30 extra or whatever that premium price is. But also, before we move on, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Scarlett Johansson, because this is probably, she said, is probably going to be her last time playing this character. She doesn't expect to play her again. And I think just because we just don't want to have to get into that caught where a character dies and then they're brought back to life. Like, it'd be cool if going forward, just that's just the end of this character, and the universe is able to move on, and you're able to just remember that character. So thank you, Scarlett Johansson. You've been a huge force and in this universe and for the MCU, and have been attached to this character since 2010. That's over 10 years attached as this one character. So we thank you so much.
And sorry to the
community, you're awesome. Our Black Widow always.
Yeah. Black Widow boys, and sorry it took Marvel so long to give you your own movie.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, I mean, for most of us, I think we say that she's the only female solo film. We don't count. That's why I say we don't count Captain Marvel. We don't count it.
We don't talk about Captain Marvel.
You're getting
change my mind. Fight me, whatever. But now moving on from that, there was also big news and big things that happened with the first season of Loki. So there's a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack with this show. So just off of first analysis, what did you guys think about Loki?
I think it's the best Marvel series so far, between WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. And I've actually liked each one more than the last. I thought it was imaginative. I thought it was very creative. I thought it was funny at times. I thought it was pretty engaging. I thought it was some pretty unique world building that simultaneously felt kind of epic and intimate at the same time.
Very.
I love all the different versions of the Loki. I like what it says about the future of the MCU, specifically the future of the Loki series. It was really good. I thought this was a very good series, and I think for the most part it kind of fulfilled its potential. And I have more to say as we go along, but I really enjoyed it. I dug it. I thought it was pretty cool. I'd watch it again. Oh yeah, Tom Hiddleston. Oh yeah, all of it, dude. The acting, the storyline. I thought it was just very imaginative and entertaining.
What do you think, Eric?
I mean, the show does really good in establishing the character of Loki. We've already had Loki established, but I think this story isn't even as much a story about like Marvel as it is about him as a person, as his character. Like the Loki series, not watching it with a Marvel lens, is literally a show about a person who his whole identity is broken down, and he has to relearn who he is. Like he always sees himself as the son that his father didn't want, as the brother that Thor hates, and he really like has to look introspectively and figure out who he is to himself. And in doing so, he has to find variants of himself that are almost like comical caricatures of himself, especially near the end when you see all those variants that they're all backstabbing each other and they all hate Thor and you see Loki, like our Loki, look at them and be like, they're ridiculous, they're dumb, like that doesn't make any sense. And he sees himself and who he was in them. So there's just so much character growth, and like you see a person grow that much within a series. I think it just really like hats off to that storytelling, because we have all this really cool Marvel stuff that's happening, right? We have the introduction to the multiverse, and you have all these different things that are happening near the end that's going to change the MCU forever. But at the same time, you're telling this really cool baseline story of a person's growth and getting to learn to love himself, but also like to build meaningful relationships with Mobius or with Sylvie. And that's why I think like this show is amazing. Like I really liked it.
I want to put something onto that Eric mentioned. You know how you talked about it working as a larger Marvel thing as well as like an individual, like a character piece that's just about Loki as a person.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the successes of the show. Is I would recommend this even to people who are not up on Marvel and don't keep up with the MCU. I think as a show onto itself, it works completely fine, and I think that's a good marker of success, that it says so much for people who are fans of the MCU in terms of the storytelling in the future, but it's also good enough that I think that it could stand on its own, that people who might not be as interested might find something of interest in this particular series.
And it can. That's why they're already bringing up a second season. They already confirmed it, So, and it's crazy because I feel like I think that show was meant like WandaVision. It was supposed to be a one-shot. Mm-hmm. But I think it did so well in explaining the way it's going to move forward. Like you guys are saying, I think, like you, Jimmy, I agree with you where I feel like this movie was the best Disney Plus series that Marvel has came out with over WandaVision and the
Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or whatever you call it, Falcon, Captain.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So nothing against them because I love those shows too. But I feel like this one, it just gave more meaning into it. And we all know how Elizabeth Olsen said, the new Doctor Strange movie ain't gonna make sense without WandaVision. But I was like, damn, I feel moving forward, nothing's gonna make sense unless you watch Loki.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. So I'm like, damn, like this Loki, I really love the show. I really like the way it's introducing what's gonna happen moving forward. I really loved it. And like you said, it's crazy how like you were saying, like Loki, he got annoyed with himself basically.
Yep.
So he now he knows how he is. So like you said, it's a learning experience for him. So he's like, damn, well. Yeah. This how I really am. This how I really sound. This how I really be. Like,
yeah. In some ways, we got a more mature Loki than we even had at the end of Infinity War.
Exactly.
Yeah, or just overall in general, we got the most mature Loki overall in general.
Yeah, like he's legit. Like almost, he's becoming a superhero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's just like, as far for me, that's one of the main things I had noticed, and what just is something I really love and appreciate, that fact. This character had been through a redemption arc before in that previous continuity. And now so this is the first time we're seeing a character, villain, anti-hero, whatever you want to call him, go through 2 redemption arcs. And this time he had to go through it obviously quicker and faster, because I think that was the beauties of it. He was able to confront and see what ultimately led to his death, and see just the things where he went wrong. And the whole thing about when Mobius is confronting him, do you like hurting people? Do you like torturing people? Do you like doing this and doing all these bad things? And he was obviously going back to his narcissistic behavior and his whole, seeing him, that whole God complex, and just seeing like, no, I was just doing what I felt was owed to me. I was doing what was a due for me for my birthright, this and that. So I really like that from that aspect. And it really just played on a lot of those aspects. And I that's just something that I really appreciated about this show. And you just see so much, there's just so much character building, so much world building. And you see, and especially I think one of the things I really love was just him talking about his mother. Like when him and Sylvie, when she asked him about his mother, that was just one of the most like sweetest aspects, especially because we saw where he had said, obviously out of his anger and because he was mad, he just told his mom, you're not my mother, even though you can see that he didn't truly believe it and he didn't mean it. But to now have him just compliment his mother and talk about how good she was, how amazing she was, and how she taught him this and that. Yeah. And I really like and appreciated those aspects. And this series was just so good. And I think it had so much hype going for it, but it was able to deliver on all those aspects. And that was not ever anything I questioned at all.
Do you think, I kind of feel like, have we ever seen this much character growth and outside of the comic books themselves of a character? If you really think about from the beginning, he went from a straight out villain, not an anti-hero, a villain, to eventually becoming an anti-hero, to seems like right now he's going to go on to a full superhero. So I think this is the most character growth we've ever seen.
That kind of growth, yeah.
Unless
you're talking about
maybe not the only character who comes to mind is Vegeta, but Vegeta isn't a comic character.
Yeah.
I would go, besides in the Marvel world, I would go Tony Stark, because you know how he felt bad about making Arms of War. So besides that, obviously Loki was a straight on villain. So that's the most character build for sure.
Kind of like
that I've seen so far.
It's cool because it's kind of actually softened the character of Loki up over time without ever betraying the essence of the character or making it feel fake or anything like that. And I think a lot of it is Tom Hiddleston, who is such a charismatic actor, who is a big part of what's made this very successful. And let's be honest, I actually think the whole cast of this series was strong. I loved Owen Wilson as Mobius. I got to see a side of Owen Wilson that I don't normally see in anything. I associate him more with comedies, and I really gravitated towards him in this. I really love the character of Sylvie, played by Sophia Di Martino, which is basically a female version of Loki. I just thought it was a very strong series in terms of the acting and the characterization.
And not only that, she was going through post-mortem, so she was actually having to feed her baby while she was recording all that sometimes, on the side. So that's much props for that.
Yep. And what did you guys just think about the world building and what they were setting up? Or did you guys know that it was going to be hinting at Kang was the one behind, a variant of Kang was going to be behind it?
I did it.
Dude, okay. Everyone keeps saying it's Kang, and I'm so confident that this was Immortus.
Immortus, yeah.
Right? Like everyone keeps like, oh yeah, it's Kang the Conqueror. But I think this is probably maybe one of the nicest versions of Kang that we were gonna get in this whole multiverse.
Yeah, because he said that multiple times too. He's all like, a lot of my variants, they're not like me. Yeah. They're gonna be wanting to do harm and wanting to cause destruction and chaos. Like,
I prefer He Who Remains. I like
He Who Remains.
I like mysterious titles like that. I didn't think we were gonna get to that so fast, but since we're already there, I wanted to say. I really like Jonathan Majors as an actor. I really dug his career and like the course scene where he's going. Dude, he makes such a strong impression just in that one extended scene. I couldn't take my eyes off him. The way that his behavior, his mannerisms, that moment, I love that moment when they cross the threshold and it gets really quiet and the camera just kind of slowly zooms in on him. And then like you see him out and the camera never leaves him, and you could see internally he's thinking a lot of different things. You could see
and he's feeling
going off in his head, and he says, I told a fib. We don't know where we're at. I don't know what happens from here. I thought it was such excellent performance, and it made an impression in such a very short amount of time. And I'm not really usually a fan of introducing like a villain right at the end or at last episode, but I think the way that it was handled here was excellent, and I think it was a really good build-up. And Jonathan Majors was awesome in that role.
He's gonna kill it.
Yeah, he killed it.
He was awesome.
Yeah, something really funny about that scene. I don't know if you get the last episode of Loki and the last episode of WandaVision, play them at the same time. Right when Wanda like is becoming the Scarlet Witch and she's like doing all her like magic stuff, and she has the dark hold. It lines up perfectly with when he's like clicking.
They're breaking the threshold.
Yeah, like when she like starts going into like trying to find her sons. Mm-hmm. Like it lines up perfectly with him like looking over, and you see behind him the timeline is like breaking apart. So and they legit call Wanda a Nexus being. So literally she like breaks the timeline. Like I thought that was really cool, and it could just be like a fan theory, but at the same time I think that's really interesting to see like these types of fan theories come out. Like because you have to think like what was it that broke the timeline there, right? Because before you see the Nexus event
before he died, it was before the He Who Remains died. Because remember he was saying if you kill me, then
it's all gonna mess up.
Then all these things are gonna break apart. So I mean, but it happened beforehand.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's all cool. It's all up in the air. It's still there's still mystery behind it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like you and the series itself ends with and I thought this was interesting because I always thought the TVA was outside of the timeline, was outside of time, right? I talked about in a previous episode where I thought the TVA might be in the quantum realm. Because
you did say that.
And but when the multiverse breaks and you see all these different universes and Loki goes back to the TVA, it's now a different timeline. The TVA is in a different timeline. So I don't know how that works. Once you start talking about time, it gets all wonky and a lot of
confusion.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool because I also had talked about how this show I see a lot of references to Doctor Who, and even in some of like the audio that they have, and obviously the master from Doctor Who being kind of Kang in the end, and all this, and him leading the TVA. You see a lot of differences in like in Doctor Who fans, they know they call it timey-wimey. It's just all over the place, right? And I think introducing that chaos is what makes the ending of Loki so special.
Right? Also, it reminds me a little bit of Rick and Morty.
Oh yeah, yep.
In terms of like there being different versions and multiple offshoots of the same person, how there's a female Loki. And of course, my favorite one is the alligator Loki.
Alligator Loki.
I love the alligator Loki.
And I just love how he's like, okay, after everything I've seen, I'm willing to just accept it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite reactions is like, after everything, that doesn't even seem strange to me anymore. And it's funny, he does still react strange when he realizes it's a Loki. Then they tell him, it's Loki, and it argues with them, and I don't know, that should just amuse me for some reason. I don't know.
Did you catch Frog Thor also?
Yeah, Throg. Yeah, that was awesome. So the vocal, it was actually the voice artist is actually Chris Hemsworth, just doing grunts. So that's pretty funny.
That's really funny.
Really?
Yeah, it's Chris Hemsworth. They revealed it was Chris Hemsworth. He doesn't have any speaking lines, but the grunting. That's actually him. I
mean, they probably recorded some of that too.
Maybe they did.
When they were doing the What If series, because he voices Thor in the What If series as well. Yeah, so they could have easily recorded some of that. And then I mean, I don't want to get too off topic, but going into the What If series, I think this, like the end of Loki, is leading into the What If series. Because in What If, you see different versions of the heroes and all that, and I think. And you see Doctor Strange, at least in the trailer, Doctor Strange doesn't look like a variant of Doctor Strange. He looks like Doctor Strange. I think he's going through the different universes and kind of discovering what's going on. And I think What If is actually like part of the MCU, and it's the universes that kind of expanded into different things, to different branches. I think that's what we're seeing in What If, and it might actually be like go into it.
When is What If supposed to come out?
It's the next series. It comes out in like August or September.
Oh, it's gonna lead into freaking It's gonna for sure lead into depending on the show. Yeah. It's gonna lead into the What If Jane Foster freaking held the
Thor.
Becomes Thor. I don't know. Now that you bring that up, I didn't put it like
it'll lead into Love and Thunder.
It'll lead into Love and Thunder.
Oh, okay, so you're saying Jane Foster in Love and Thunder might not be the Jane Foster from our MCU timeline. It might just be a variant of Thor.
Some way, somehow, maybe.
That's how we get multiple Thors in the same movie.
Hey, I'm telling you, this is the phase the comic book films are at. This is what
I'm excited.
I feel like the shared universe. We already know the shared universe, and now
Ruby, you blow my mind right now.
So. This is the age of the multiverse.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild, bro. It's gonna be wild. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think going back to Kang, I think we talked about how good of an actor he is, and I think everyone has really been talking about him kind of being the next big bad. Oh, because we knew he was gonna come out in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people were theorizing, maybe we'll see Kang at the end of this. So again, we know that the actor is portraying Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp. We also know that the character technically introduced in this was He Who Remains, not Kang, right?
Yeah, Immortals.
So for those that don't know, like some of our viewers might not know, Kang is like in the comic books, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's a being from the future that comes back in time, and he kind of travels through time, and he becomes different people throughout, right? Like his younger self, we see him as Iron Lad, which is a version of Iron Man.
And he's the anti-hero. Yep.
Yeah, we see Immortus, who's almost like a hero as well. And then obviously we see Kang the Conqueror, who's a big
Ramatut,
who's a big bad.
Ramatut, Immortus, and Iron Lad.
When you say Iron Lad, he's
Ramatut, from Egypt.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Kang. Like, he actually isn't really. I won't say a villain, a straight-on villain. He's probably going to start up as a villain, but in the comics, he had shifted sides and became a little bit more heroic and was just more kind of after what he wanted to do. So we'll probably see some kind of arc for that character, for this character too, going forward. He's going to start up as a villain, but then
I'm assuming I'm expecting to see a couple of different Kang variants. You know, like
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like Iron Lad won't come down until a little more down the line, just for the fact that that's a future self of him where he's like, I don't want to deal with my old self. Because he knows his variants too, I guess, from the comics. Like, he's like, I know I'm a villain. But I don't want to be a villain no more. I want to be a superhero. So, I mean, I can see that happening down the line. But, I mean, I just can't wait to see what happens with the variants that they're going to introduce.
Yeah. This is cool for the actor Jonathan Majors because it's such an eccentric performance that he's going to be able to play multiple versions of this character. I imagine for an actor,
I would be like, pay me for each Kang.
But going back to that, I actually had a feeling that it was going to be Kang because Kevin Feige made those comments that this series is going to have more, it's going to tie more into the future. It's going to be the best, not the best, but it's going to be the one that has the most, that drives the plot of the MCU or drives the MCU going forward than the other series. So not only that, but then Ravonna Renslayer is also a love interest of Kang in the comics too, right?
Yep.
So I said with those in mind, and then knowing that Jonathan Majors is playing Kang, and Kang was going to be the next Thanos level villain or the next overarching villain for this next phase, these next couple phases, I'm like, well, it only makes sense if, and then knowing, okay, the big mystery, who's really running the TVA? Well, it's got to be, not Kang, but Immortus or a variant of Kang. And they're going to be, obviously, that's going to be the future going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I actually don't think Kang the Conqueror is going to be the next big bad like Thanos was. I think he's more of just like a catalyst that like creates chaos and different things will happen. but almost like a Loki.
Yeah.
In earlier.
Well, yeah, because like I said too, he's not really a villain like in the comics, and he has different allegiances and does his own thing essentially. So I think that'll be a good way to have it be different, because I think that's one of the main complaints that people made. Oh, this is going to be the next Thanos level villain, or this guy's not Thanos, or this guy acts too weird to be a next big baddie. But obviously not understanding the context and understand that that's not even Kang. So I think that was a good way for them to kind of segue and do something different, and not just have it be
another big bad,
another physically imposing dude who just wants to wipe out half the universe or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see probably his storyline like come full circle in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
I think they might kind of bring everything back to one timeline. And then we'll get like an actual like big bag later, more along the lines of like Galactus that has to bring everyone back together to stop him.
You read my mind.
Right, because the way they set up He Who Remains, and though even like himself, like in the last episode, he talks about his story. He's really just a scientist.
Yeah.
Right. He's really just a scientist from the future that figured out how to travel between dimensions. And yeah, he has all this power because he can foresee the future, but he only really has that power within his timeline because he created one timeline.
Exactly.
And so you have someone like him who's just a really like genius level person, and then like we know we're gonna get the Fantastic Four, we're gonna get Reed Richards, another genius level person. And I think I see this more like going towards creating the Illuminati within the Marvel universe. And I see it going that direction, and maybe then coming together to stop an actual big bad along the lines of Galactus or someone else. Like there's so many that we can go
There's
with.
so much that could happen though. That's why
I know.
we were talking about earlier though. We're talking about freaking the Thunderbolts. You know what I'm saying? There's too much going on, or too much build up going on, where we're just like, as fans, we're like, too much theories, going on. Like, dang, it could be this, it could be that, it could be. Oh man, it's just it's a love-hate thing right now. Like, they're making us wonder about what's gonna happen. But I love it though. I love it.
Yeah, I love that we got Loki and Black Widow at the same time, because they have nothing to do with each other. Zero
at all.
So they're really establishing the fact that you can have multiple different stories and happening at the same time that don't have to intersect.
Yeah, one that's more grounded, a spy, thriller, mind control, action-y kind of story, and another one that's about different dimensions, different worlds, and variations of yourselves. And it's just pretty crazy that that's all the same universe.
And we're getting. I think that's a good thing, because in a universe with infinite possibilities and with like infinite storylines and timelines going on, there's going to be a lot of ground level adventures like the one we see in Black Widow. Some of the stakes are not going to be earth-ending shakes. They just might be stakes for a particular person or for a particular part of the world, or just like a particular conflict. So it makes sense. In a large universe, there's all kinds of small stuff going. Not everything is going to be a Thanos level threat.
Yeah,
exactly.
And when you think about the movies that are now coming out, like most recently we're going to have Shang-Chi, we're going to have Spider-Man, and all those are going to be
Eternals
later. Like I feel like all those are going to be kind of their own standalone stories, right? Eternals is going to go into the past. We already seen in the trailers.
Exactly.
And
they've been around all along.
Yep, exactly. Doing nothing.
Yep. I think Miss Marvel, and then the Hawkeye series is supposed to be the end of the year too on Disney Plus.
Yeah, like the only movies that I see or shows I see that are gonna tie into this are probably the What If series. So that's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. And and then Spider-Man, because we've had all of the talks about having multiple Spider-Man in that movie. And then Multiverse of Madness and Quantumanium all coming out next year. Like we got time.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield are gonna be in the next Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are gonna be in the next Spider-Man movie.
And supposedly Andrew too.
I mean, all the rumors, everyone keeps talking about it, but I don't know, man. I'm not gonna get my hopes up.
Yeah. And the rumors that Charlie Cox. There was a rumor about Charlie Cox. He had to cancel a convention appearance because he had to do reshoots for Spider-Man: No Way Home. So with all those rumors, it's hard to really report on them or really think much because what if it just turns out not to be true, or it just turns out somebody was lying, or somebody was just trying to gain clout on social media?
I guess.
Yeah, they're just gonna be like psych.
Oh man, this is really good. Man, the only way I can see the Daredevil coming into play with that is if they have some sort of run-in as superheroes, or Peter's going through. He needs a lawyer.
I mean, he definitely needs a lawyer after what happened at the end of Spider-Man.
Exactly. But I want to bring this back full circle because this is something that I mentioned after we covered the very first episode, that Jimmy was just kind of like, I don't know about that. I need to think on it a little bit more. So now that we had a full series to think on it, and then seeing him as his character for 10 years now, I said that I made a very bold statement that Tom Hiddleston is the best actor in the MCU. So now that you guys have had more time to ponder that and we've had a full series to digest it, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's true now that we've seen the full series, but I think at the time.
So wait, hold on. You're saying I'm right?
Yeah.
Can you say louder?
At the time, before the series was a thing.
Now I'm going to just disagree. Fuck it.
Okay, I mean,
I'm gonna disagree. Jonathan Majors is the best.
That's true, Jimmy.
Actually, you know what? Fuck, I take it back. I didn't want to say that, but here's the thing. I actually think Jonathan Majors is the best. However, I don't think it's fair to compare that to somebody who's had like 10 years worth of roles and stuff like that. But however, Tom Hiddleston at this point, I might have disagreed with you at the time. We can go back and forth forever on that. But I do think that Jonathan Majors has a big chance to give the best performance we've ever seen in the MCU. Only because maybe it was just me getting overly excited, but it's the type of like acting performance that reminds me of something a little bit of like Heath Ledger as the Joker, the kind of detail that he put into it in that short.
I can't really argue there, but only because we've seen more of Tom Hiddleston, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, runner up.
Potential.
I go with the other Tom Holland.
Tom Holland?
He kills it as Spider-Man, bro. Like if he's the best Peter Parker I've ever seen, and I feel like he portrays he plays the character so well as a teenager. We're like, bro, if we see more of him, which we are moving forward, I think he like I said, he's the next runner-up. I ain't gonna die without a doubt. First Tom Hiddleston.
I see that.
What do you think, Jim? Sorry. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I just want to comment on Ruben's pick real quick because that makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of times we say who's the best actor, and we think of just like a holistic actor as an actor. But if we're talking specifically about a character, Tom Holland as Spider-Man, like no one plays their character better than Tom Holland plays Spider-Man. And you even had Stan Lee comment on it, right? Where he said, "This is exactly what I envisioned Spider-Man to be."
Yeah.
And I think that's really good. If you're talking about holistic actors, my favorite actor is Ed Norton. So I'm gonna go with Ed Norton as the best actor to have been in the MCU.
Yeah. Okay. You're getting into something wholly different because now you're just saying the best actor who happens to be in the MCU as opposed to the best performance.
I
love it.
So those are my two picks. If I say best actor to happen to be in the MCU is Ed Norton. Best actor portraying their character the best is I'm gonna agree with Ruben. Go with Tom Holland.
Good picks. Those are really good picks.
Okay, if you want to go the best actor, I'm gonna go with Michael Keaton. I think his performance was great, and I actually think as an actor, he's pretty fantastic.
That's true. Yeah, he had me so convinced in Spider-Man. Yeah, he was a great actor. Yeah,
great actor. For sure.
All right, he's scary. Let's be honest. When he turns in the backseat of the car and he's talking. To Peter,
but remember, we can't forget we're talking about the MCU though. That was the original question.
That is MCU. That is MCU.
Vulture, Adrian Toomes. He's not talking
about
Batman.
But he said Michael Keaton. I was like,
Michael Keaton,
Vulture,
Spider-Man.
But he's not so bad. We're talking about Batman. I heard Batman in the mix.
Okay, no. Okay, it's the best actor, not the best performance. But even still, I think it's one of the best performances.
Okay,
I think he's really good in that role. And
this topic's so hot, I'm sweating.
Well, I think the good news is Tom Hiddleston did say that he's willing to portray this character forever as long as Marvel will want him. So hopefully we'll get to a point to where we see him as classic Loki like we did in this series.
Awesome too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really cool that he said that, because that's kind of the direction Marvel's going to. They want to hire actors that are willing to be that character for a long time. You don't see them doing these super long contracts like they
10 movie deals or 11 movie deals.
Didn't y'all recently hear too though that supposedly Marvel moving forward doesn't want to do those long-term contracts?
Yeah. But that's just, it'll just be like, so that way they're not so tied to like 10 films, and then when another commitment comes up or another thing they want to do, then they can't do it. Oh, I'm tied to Marvel. I can't do it.
So you mean like minimize it by half, like 5-year term instead of like a 10-year or 8-movie contract?
It could be like 2, 3, or like maybe by movie with trust that they're going to do the next film, or with the understanding that there's going to be another film or something like that.
I also think it depends on another factor too. This is one thing I want to throw out there is like, I understand actors not wanting to be tied forever, because you're an actor, you want to try to, like, your whole thing is to be free as many people as possible and like widen your scope. And sometimes repeating the same character over and over doesn't allow you to do that as an actor. However, when you have a character like Loki, who in the new series actually shows completely different, where Tom Hiddleston gets to show off completely different sides of himself as an actor that he wasn't able to do in any of the movies before. I think so long as you're expanding the character in such a way that it produces new challenges for the actor or gives them new areas to explore, you're more likely to get people to want to return. I'm sure Tom Hiddleston would not be as excited if it was just Loki showing up again every time to be Loki. They actually did something with his character and gave him a full arc that's not even done developing yet. His arc is still going.
I feel like Loki.
I think it depends on how they take it too.
Oh, you're right.
I agree with you. My bad, I didn't mean to jump in like that. But I feel like Loki is like his own version of the way they give power to Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool. I feel like Loki, they're giving Tom Hiddleston his own like little I don't want to say leash because that sounds like messed up, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he has his free range and all that. Where like, so it's like, you know what? I want to portray him in this kind of way where it's like a little bit more funnier. The way Deadpool brings that aspect, Ryan Reynolds bring that aspect. So I feel like Tom Hiddleston is that Loki actor, and he's always gonna be that actor whenever it comes down to it. So I feel like if they give him they keep giving him that free range to, as long as he's willing to play that role, I feel like he could keep killing it.
Dude, if you pay attention, in the actual credits for Loki, he's credited as a producer, Tom Hiddleston.
Crazy, I did not.
So he's actually like helping build out these stories as well. I'm sure he has his say. And
that's why I feel like
I don't think Loki would do this. I think this is how his character route should go.
I also think it's because of the fact of he's Tom Hiddleston. He's portraying this character 10 years. He also understands, like, if there's a line or a certain way they want him to say something, he could just be like, you know what, or at least have the power to say, okay, well, I like this. Why don't we try this? Because I think he would say it this way, or I think he would say this word, or I think he would do this. So I also think that they have enough respect and understanding for him. Like, okay, you've been playing this character for 10 years, so we're gonna give you the freedom to at least on this to do one take your way, and we'll see how it goes.
That's why the best example I was thinking of was Ryan Reynolds, you know, because that's the way he is in his character. Junior, what's up?
I was gonna say for the same thing happens for Black Widow. If you watch the title sequence for Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson's a producer on it. So again, I think they're giving the actors a say into what their characters are. And again, it's Black Widow and Loki, and like you mentioned, they've been these characters for so many years now. They're probably like they know best, or they need to have a say into the character development. But I think it's cool.
I think it's a good thing that we have a lot of these actors who are starting to take more interest in the comic book roles, where I feel like in the beginning when comic book movies were becoming a bigger thing, I'm the best example. A lot of actors and actresses just dismiss these films as a paycheck. And the best example I could give, look at Halle Berry in the first X-Men movie. Dreadful, wooden, awful performance because she didn't take it seriously. Once it was a big hit in his franchise, you see in part 2, she gives a legitimately good performance. I've never seen such a big turnaround from bad to good like that. You have.
I would say though, Catwoman is probably her best ever comic book role to date. Nothing compares to Catwoman.
Man. Storm.
You got Ryan Reynolds producing Deadpool, and like shows you how much he cares. You have somebody like Tom Hiddleston getting more involved with Loki. Another more significant one that a lot of people don't discuss is that Margot Robbie is very involved in
with Harley
Tales of Harley Quinn, and
that's true.
has been trying to move it away from the original, how the Suicide Squad movie was a producer on Birds of Prey, pushed for different directors and different storylines. And as of right now, Margot Robbie is trying to pressure Warner Brothers to find her the perfect Poison Ivy at this point.
Nice.
Been made official, but
it's gonna be that chick from Wedding Crashers. What's her the one that's the redhead?
Isla Fisher, married to Borat.
Yeah, Fisher. I think she could. I think she could play a good Poison.
I mean, maybe, but I kind of like that she's actually keeping up with like the HBO Max series and like
nice. Yeah.
A lot of these actors are starting to take like, okay,
yeah,
this is an iconic role. This is more than just a paycheck. Let's try to make it as good as possible. And I think it's kind of cool that a lot of these actors are taking more interest in this.
It's catching on. Yeah, it's catching on.
I mean, you see. Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see The Rock with Black Adam. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an actor this excited to play a hero. Like this, he's been putting out like stuff on social media before even like HBO started talking about it. So I think that goes to say just another name to throw out there.
Yeah.
A good example.
Not even just that fandom. He probably had the best, most passionate, most precise, concise promo for a character we had ever seen, where he like called out everybody in the DC universe and was like, the shift of power, the balance of power is about to shift in the DC universe. So you see just a lot of these actors now getting very passionate, very excited, very invested in these characters, and I think that's like super cool. And they're not just looking at it as a throwaway, or okay, I'm gonna make $10 million from this movie, so we're just gonna treat it as another regular role or something like that.
They're pushing for them to be quality, and a lot of these actors are actually delving into the comic books and the cartoons and saying, hey, why don't we do this? Or it's like, this is cool, why isn't this in the movies? Or
I think that's really cool to see. And as somebody who is so passionate about superheroes and comics, and seeing that these actors are taking that caution and with that care, that's just something that's just very cool to see.
That's what I like about Dwayne Johnson calling out the other fools that you were talking about. Like, you know what? Like, this movie is gonna change the DC, the DC universe. Like, he has that confidence where he's like, hey man, I'm gonna change the game for DC. Yeah. And he, in a way, he kind of took a jab at Marvel too, if you remember, where he was like, this moving forward, like, this is gonna be the best superhero, like, and I'm like, damn, that takes a lot of confidence.
Exactly.
Like, a lot of confidence.
Exactly. But with that being said, that's actually all the time we have for today. Make sure you guys check out Black Widow and check out Loki season 1. Both those are on Disney Plus, but I recommend to go see Black Widow in the theaters because you're going to pay extra money. You might as well just pay for that to have an actual theater experience. Better quality, better sound, popcorn, all of that. And make sure you guys follow us at Heroes and Mutants Podcast on Instagram. We are doing our giveaway raffle for the Batman Rogues Gallery painting next week on Thursday, it's going to be this week when time we get post, but it's going to be Thursday, July 29th. And make sure you guys follow the instructions for that and how to join. And
can I pause you for a second, Nick? Before you give your final outro, because you did this for Black Widow, but you forgot to do it for Loki, we have to know, how do you guys score Loki?
10.
All right, because we kind of got
easy.
I'll give it a 9. I'll say 9.
It a 9 too.
Yeah, I'll give it a 10 easily. 10 easily.
Okay, so they're all in a very.
We all loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, we all loved it.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and check out that raffle, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you.
See you guys.